were the real Israelites. We're not going to get into that. We got into that last month. Go ahead and read on.
And shall lay thee even with the ground.
Now he say he's going to lay Jerusalem even with the ground. Go ahead and read.
And thy children within thee. And they shall not leave in thee one stone upon another, because thou knewest not the time of thy visitation.
Now let's go over to Luke chapter 21, and we're going to pick it up at verse 20, because Jesus gave us more prophecy concerning Jerusalem and concerning the Israelites, the people that dwelt in Jerusalem. Go ahead and read on.
And
21 and 20. Luke 21, verse 20. Go ahead and read.
And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is not.
Now Jerusalem was compassed with armies in 70 A.D., but actually, this is a type of what was yet to come, because Jerusalem will be compassed with armies again in these last days. And we'll show you that as we get further into this lesson. But skip down now to verse 23. Go ahead and read on.
But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. For there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people.
And this is what will happen to this people. Go ahead and read.
And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled.
So now Israel, they would be scattered out of the land. They would no longer possess the land, at least until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled anyway. So now Israel would not be there. Another people will move in and take over that land, and we understand who that is. It is the people that the Bible calls the Edomites, but that you call the Jews. But now, so Israel would be scattered, and they would not return to that land until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled, because they must return to that land, because God made an everlasting covenant with Abraham that that land would belong to them for an everlasting possession. Let's go now to let's go to Obadiah. Obadiah, it is one verse, one chapter I should say, and we'll pick it up at verse 8. Obadiah, the book of Obadiah. It's a small book in the Old Testament, near the end of the Old Testament, right near Jonah and Amos. And it's only one chapter, so we'll begin reading at verse 8. Obadiah, verse 8. Okay, go ahead and read.
Shall I not in that day, saith the Lord, even destroy the wise men out of Edom, and understanding out of the mount of Esau?
Now, who is Edom? Who is Esau? That is the people that the world say are the Jews today. But they are really Israel's brother. If you go back and read the story in Genesis chapter 25 about Esau and Jacob. The nation of Israel came out of Jacob. The nation of Edomites came out of Esau. So now Israel got kicked out. Esau moved in. Go ahead and read on.
And thy mighty men, O Teman, shall be dismayed,
to
the end of that every one of the mount of Esau may be cut off by slaughter.
Go ahead and read.
For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever.
Go ahead.
And the day that thou stoodest on the other side, and the day that the strangers carried away captive his forces, and foreigners entered into his gates, and cast lots upon Jerusalem, even thou was as one of them.
We just read in Luke where Israel would be led away captive, right? So now in that day, and that day was 70 A.D., by the way. We're not going to bother reading all that history today on that particular topic anyway. So now, Israel got led away captive. Esau moved in, and they have taken over the land. And the book says that strangers would possess that land even until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. And Esau is the main one that is possessing that land. Read some more.
But thou shouldest not have looked on the day of thy brother in the day that he became a stranger. Neither shouldest thou have rejoiced over the children of Judah in the day of their destruction.
Go ahead.
Neither shouldest thou have spoken proudly in the day of distress. Thou shouldest not have entered into the gate of my people in the day of their calamity.
Go ahead.
Yea, thou shouldest not have looked on their affliction in the day of their calamity, nor have laid hands on their substance in the day of their calamity.
So now you got Israel, they've been kicked out, Esau done moved in. And I'm going to read you a little history as to what have been going on ever since Esau moved in. We're going to read from the last 2 minutes. You can get a little history today, people. So for those that don't like history, I'm sorry. But nevertheless, you got to get some. in order to understand certain things in the Bible. Certain things, if you don't understand certain history, you will never understand certain things that are written in the Bible. Find me page 405. I'm not going to wear you out with it, but you're going to get some. But I just want you to read right here. You know, all this took place in 70 A.D. 70 A.D. Israel got kicked out. 70 A.D. Edom moved in. And this is what has been going on ever since Edom moved in 70 A.D. Just read that right there that's underlined in red. Go ahead and read.
For nearly 1,900 years.
1,900 years. That would have been somewhere around 70 A.D., wouldn't it? 1,900 years ago, that would have been somewhere around 70 A.D. This is what's been going on. Go ahead and read.
Palestine, as the Romans had renamed Israel, was ruled and fought over by foreigners.
Well, ruled and fought over, it said. You know, fighting. You understand what I'm saying? That meant that war had been going on over this land. It said it had been ruled and fought over by foreigners. Read a little bit more.
Romans, Byzantines.
Just naming you some of them that have ruled and fought over that land ever since Israel got kicked out in 70 A.D. This is when the fight really started over that land. You know, everybody think it started in 48. No, it didn't start in 48. You know, when Edom went back there and set up that what they call the state of Israel, that is not when the fighting started over that land. The fighting started about 1,900 years ago when Israel got kicked out in 70 A.D. Go ahead and read a little bit more.
Sassanid Persians, Arabs.
Just naming you some of the nations that have fought and died over that land. Go ahead and read.
Arabs, Crusaders, and Turks all controlled it at various times.
So now they even named Arabs, right? And that's really who you have fighting and dying over today. You got the Arabs and you have the Ishmaelites, or the people that you call Arabs. The Arabs and Edomites, I'm trying to say, that are fighting and dying over that land to this very day. And as long as Israel is not in that land, there will be fighting and dying going on over that land. Let's go now to Daniel chapter 2 and pick it up at verse 28. Take the thing back to the time of the Gentiles. Show you when the time of the Gentiles got started and show you when it's going to end. Because it said Israel would be led away captive into all nations until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. You are looking at the time of the Gentiles. Let's go to Daniel chapter 2 and we'll begin reading at verse 28. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, the first Gentile world ruling dynasty, he had this dream and he wanted to know what the dream was as well as the interpretation of the dream. Now you look at this way back in the days of Daniel and you think, oh man, you're going to take us back there and give us all that ancient history. What does that have to do with us today? Well, he's going to tell you right here in this first verse that we are about to read here. Daniel chapter 2, and we'll begin reading at verse 28. Daniel 2, and we'll pick it up at verse 28. 2 and 28. Okay, go ahead and read.
But there's a God in heaven that revealeth secrets.
Now, you know, Nebuchadnezzar had a dream, and then he wanted all his wise men to tell him what this dream was about, and none of them could tell him. Finally, he went to the captive, Daniel, the Israelite, and Daniel going to tell him. So now Daniel is telling him, he said, there's a God in heaven that revealeth these things. You know, I ain't that wise. But there's a God in heaven that he'll tell you what's going on, but he going to do it by my mouth. Go ahead and read on.
And maketh known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days.
No, in what days?
The latter
days. He maketh known to King Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter day. Not back in Nebuchadnezzar's day, but what shall be in the latter day. Start with Nebuchadnezzar, but carry all the way down to the latter day, to this generation that we're living in today. So it's end time stuff that you read about. It started about 2,500 years ago, but it was carried all the way down to the latter day, down to the days that Jesus spoke about in the 24th chapter of Matthew. Did you finish that 28th verse?
No.
Go ahead and finish. Then I want you to skip, and we will pick up the interpretation of the dream. Go ahead and read.
Thy dream and the visions of thy head upon thy bed are these.
So now he had this dream, and in this dream he saw this great image. And this image was made of different type metals. You know, it was part gold, part silver, part brass, part iron, part clay.